Hello everyone, welcome back to another Dash Cam review. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Stars Came Back by Rolf Nelson. This is a sci-fi book. It's kind of got an interesting background. As I understand it, it was originally done in bits and pieces for friends on his blog, and then it was put together and put into a book. This is available for sale as an ebook on the Amazon Kindle, and I do recommend it. This is there's a lot to really like about this. This is a bit of social and military sci-fi with a nice undercut of humor. Mr. Nelson's obviously not maybe a professionally trained writer, but one of the things that I've always enjoyed about the expansion beyond the traditional market is that the Kindle and Nook on Barnes & Noble and e-publishing in general lets people who would never get through the door, or the year-long slush pile at a traditional pen and paper publisher, they have the chance to put their stuff out there, and there's some genuine Darwinian evolution going on here, in terms of process of elimination and survival of the fittest. Maybe people don't have the best writing craft in the world. Their sentences may not be the tightest, their dialogue might not be the most refined, but they put it together, a genuine story with good ideas that are honestly enjoyable and make you want to know more. That is exactly what The Stars Came Back is. Now, like I said, I want to get one thing out of the way ahead of time, because it's going to be one of the first things you notice if you pick up a preview of the book, and that is the format. Mr. Nelson wrote his book like a stage play, and that's clever and it's unique. It does not work as a sci-fi format, primarily because of the amount of description you need for a technological plot. Okay, this is high science fiction. Fans of Honor Harrington, David Weber's work, John Ringo, where you get into the technical details of how things work and the plot matters, relevant to how the mechanics of star travel work. These kind of descriptions, when you put them in as a stage direction to introduce the scene, they really slow things down. They're a little bit overwhelming. And with the dialogue, it can frequently be hard to track who's saying what to whom, because it's just a name and colon, and it's not a lot of to this person, etc. I say this up front, as usually I leave my negatives for the back of my reviews. The reason that I'm saying this up front is because it is something that will hit you on the first couple pages, and what I really don't want you to do, I really think that this book is worthwhile, but this is an immediate problem reading it in terms of writing style. So I'm mentioning it up front, and then I'm going to get to the positives so that I can leave you with a positive impression. And I want to encourage you to get through the first couple chapters where you're going to notice this and kind of be struggling with format, to get to the story, which is clever, it's fun, and it's uplifting, and is really worthwhile. All right, now the overall galaxy setting, the world building here, I enjoyed a lot. Rolf Nelson has the idea that hyperspace travel is not static, that there is weather there are events there that affect travel. So just like when you're writing a story about colonies in the early 16th, 17th, 15th century, where current and wind mattered in terms of how you were going to get places, what ports you could get to, and what seasons, that feel carries over into space travel. It's a really brilliant touch, and I like it. It's also very plot relevant, because here's a world where there's been this big stellar storm, basically, after a supernova. They call it the blackout, if I'm remembering correctly, where space travel, after colonies got started, became almost impossible for a couple of centuries. And the worlds grew different based on what they had, how much they could survive with. Some planets went dark. There's lost technology from the empire before that plays in. This is very cool. It's a very rich setting, and he does a lot with it. He doesn't just throw out, look, I came up with a neat idea, and move along. He digs in, and it matters. And the further in you go, the more it matters. Military technology. This is military sci-fi. Mr. Nelson does a great job. He has come up with the idea of limited warfare. in that if you're going to have a fight, you have to declare what level of technology, and this can be anything from sticks and stones to the Roman era to there's a battle that takes place using rules of around Vietnam War era military technology, and then there's the full-on starship range and sensor and missiles and fighters, all mixed in. That's a great amount of variety. It really adds something for the training montages and the characters who are professional soldiers, because they can't just be proficient at one generation of technology. They have to be proficient at all of the generations of technology. The only other bit of sci-fi that I've seen where this has been the case has been a collaboration between John Ringo and David Weber called March Up Country. And that tetralogy of 4 books, if you haven't read it, and I'll throw out a real quick, the John Ringo and David Weber and the March Up Country books, they balance each other out. Ringo's too much of a dirty mouth perv for my taste, and David Weber's plot is too slow for my taste in a lot of times, and which neither of them share the other problems. And while you can kind of tell who writes what chapter given the focus, whether the focus is above or below the belt, really, they balance it off well. If you haven't put it on your to-read list. And I'm bringing this up because I love that series. I reread it at least once a year. And I would describe that Rolf Nelson's The Stars Came Back captures kind of the same amount of knowledge and discipline involved in being such a well and thoroughly grounded military professional. I really loved that flavor. And it played out great because you have the kind of drill sergeant speech varied from swords and bucklers for a medieval level of warfare to how, this is my rifle, this is my gun. There's some nice homages to, there's some great homages to famous contemporary film in there. Full Metal Jacket gets quipped at a couple times. Here's our next real fun bit is that they are in a living starship. With a name that I can't pronounce, honestly. Our main character in a gambling game wins a wreck, and the wreck turns out to be a hidden treasure of ancient technology. And so there's an ongoing world-building bit of drama as they're trying to repair this almost ruined, trashed out starship that turns out to have more potential than anybody could ever have imagined. But they don't just do they don't just do what's kind of the trope of, look, you've miraculously been handed the greatest starship in the galaxy, go and kick ass with it. They actually have to buy gas. They have to figure out how they're going to get parts for an engine. And then once they do these things, the ship gets bigger and better. This is kind of an idea that is much more popular in video games. I want to say the Fable games, where improving things helps you out. Also, the Mass Effect trilogy, one of the mechanisms that their story did very well is the better you did in the challenges they handed you, the more resources you had in the next game. That kind of a feel gets trapped in here, so it's a little touch that isn't all that common it's a little touch that isn't all that common, and I liked it. It plays well with the rebuilding, rediscovering feel of Mr. Nelson's universe. Really awesome. The characters are broad and dynamic. The character ideas, you've got, our main character is someone who is a jack of all trades and master of none, and when there's that much going on in the plot, that's kind of who you need as a hero. He makes a great guy he has bad luck, and he's got the broad capability and knows highly capable friends that they turn their bad luck into opportunity again and again and again. The plot sometimes is a little weak in terms of raw coincidence. Oh really? You just happen to run into the exact person that you need. But you know what? I don't have a huge problem with that, because I think God works like that a lot. The military company that he ends up housing in his ship, a mercenary company, he ends up housing them in his ship to pay rent so that he can pay for the upkeep of the ship. They're a hoot, and how they deal with the civilian refugees who lived in the ship already, which is an orphan, a drop-dead gorgeous cook, who's basically kind of good at everything. The ship's computer, I should talk about really quick, starts off learning, because true, free, unshackled intelligences are outlawed. So basically, if everybody knew that the ship was fully alive, people would be willing to, a lot of people would be willing to blow it right the hell up. So it's learned to hide itself, and its characters revealed very deftly in unstandard answers. The computer, of course, is bored out of its skull, and it plays games with the crew with its questions and responses, and a really nice mechanic in this story, so that it's trying to learn by giving them slightly incorrect answers or not exactly answering the question they asked. It tries to teach them how to think critically, and it's also just trying to discover their character or relaying what it thinks about what they're doing by how it has its own quirky answers. That's a great mechanic. I really loved that. That was brilliant. There is some fighting. There's some fighting in the second or third chapter, and then there's increasingly large battles on planet as the mercenary company goes through. There's some great training. There are touches of romance. This is another one of those stories that I love, and something that deeply resonates with me in books that I'm going to review. People learn to genuinely care about each other and are loyal to one another. They learn together how to be stronger and more courageous and more capable, and that's something that I think kind of appeals to a traditionally American worldview, which is driving across the plains of North America as usual, and that's something that rugged individualism and independence kind of mixed with we lean on our friends and together we get through feel that is really awesome. I really did enjoy it. The book is called The Stars Came Back. Again, the formatting is almost painful at times. The story is brilliant and a lot of fun. It isn't the deepest book, and it doesn't necessarily have an immense moral measure, but there are touches of good morality and touches of genuine caring and loyalty. One last thing I'd like to mention before I go is that there is a monastery of warrior monks who were young men and women, who the whole monastery and their sign is a cross made out of targeting reticule, and they're entirely made up of soldiers who had PTSD or were discarded as damaged when they were all used up by the government that trained them. And so, the main character walks into this, and there are a bunch of people doing slow, peaceful, meditative kata using rifles and bayonets in monks' robes, which is just freaking awesome. There's lots of touches like that. There's nice digs at government, at corrupt bureaucracy and other things that are kind of politically relevant. So once again, the book is The Stars Came Back by Rolf Nelson. It's a cheap ebook. It's not expensive. There's enough story there to dig into. The format gets better as the book goes on and you get more used to it. And the story is absolutely worth the time it'll take to get used to it. Highly recommended. Absolutely. I'm going to be buying my own copy because I read it was loaned to me. I encourage you to do the same. Great book. Thanks for taking time to watch another Dashboard review. Hope you've enjoyed a picture of God's creation and hearing a little bit more about excellent fiction. Feel free to check out my own books and other reviews at legrandville.com. All right, God bless. Have a great day.